I don't think any man had a sweeter weekend than Ross King, scoring the winning goal for Rathdowney, 115 to 17 points against Camross in the Laois semi-final. A year ago, I think it's well known at this stage, he had his teeth knocked out by a Camross player, and what was a fairly gruesome end to that particular match. He left the Laois panel for a while, and he eventually did come back, but this must have been so sweet, last second winner.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic for him, and I suppose the whole season has really turned around incredibly. You know, I know he did an interview after Laois has been over Dublin talking about that. I think was he on holidays when Eddie Brennan rang him, or was he on holidays when he was watching them get promoted or something like that early on in the year, and then Eddie Brennan met him and I suppose kind of sold it to him, the idea of kind of coming on board with Laois, and he did, and he was very, very good that day against Dublin in O'Moore Park. He got the goal, I think, against the Birr in the quarter-final in Croke Park. Yeah. So really good year with Laois, and then, but I suppose that's really, really sweet. Like the rivalry is really, really intense in Laois Club hurling, and it has unfortunately spilled over fairly frequently in the past. Sounds like it was a pretty tight and cagey game, but for the only goal, and it was absolutely brilliant strike. Laois today, saw Stephen Miller had tweeted it out, and well worth checking out. You know, brilliant shot.
And here's what Ross King had to say on Midlands Radio afterwards.
Oh, geez, I don't know if there's ever such thing as fate or whatever. It actually all came true. I was probably dreaming about that for 365 days to the weekend, every night from January to February. But I don't know. It's just pure fate. I'd say. I don't know what it was, but pure luck. I went in top corner, and thank God it was the 61st minute, I think, and we got our hand on the ball, whistle blew, and pure.
Well, great work, James. Yeah, very much.
Yeah, he's just buzzing with that.
Yeah.
And like, you can't blame him either, because you really would have it in for that opposition. I know in the past I had my finger broken with it was a fairly nasty stroke from behind when I wasn't even looking at the other person, and you don't let that stuff go easily. And I don't know if you've ever had your teeth broken in any circumstance. When I was 8 years of age, I was a young lad, naive, I went in to block down a 15-year-old when you're pucking down in the park, and he just burst through me and smashed my teeth. And it really is something where you're going, oh my God, when it happens to you. Darragh O'Connell, who plays for Coola, he had his tooth chipped not so long ago as well, and when I saw that look in his face, I was like, it's that shock horror. You can't really replace your teeth. Other things would mend, but for Ross, I'd say that really would have a massive impact on you.
Well, also because it's an injury that just how long lasting the repercussions can be. I mean, you could get lucky and you could just chip it, but if it's kind of root damage, you know, that's going to be a lot of problems for you down the line. And it just sounds like it was a really, really tough time for him as well off the pitch. And you know, it wasn't a good time for Laois hurling, and I suppose it was something that was said this year how well Eddie Brennan did with the county to kind of restore a bit of feel good factor to it. And yeah, it's just been some turnaround in 2019 for us.
Yeah, and so they'll face Borris Kilcotton in the final. Borris Kilcotton beat Clough-Ballycolla 25 points to 115. PJ Scully scored 18 points. I think it was like 14 frees a sideline and 3 from play, which isn't bad going. And Clough-Ballycolla had won their group stage clash, so it's a nice little turnaround for them.
That's hugely impressive, 18, but I think it was just surpassed, wasn't it, by Timmy Hammersley in Tipperary for the top scorer of the weekend.
And we'll get to him in a little while, but first of all we have to talk about Michael Verney, who has refused. He's a no-show today. But
county semi-final celebrations.
Yeah. So Birr beat Kilcormac Killahy 20 points to 16, and St. Rina's beat Belmont 14 points to 12. So you're going to have the traditional final in Offaly. Birr, the Verney final.
And the thing was, like you say, traditional final, but I always think when you look at some of these cases that, like, well, it might be a powerhouse, that for them it's such a big thing. You know, I know Verney has talked about that. I think it's 11 years since Birr have won. Also, or an Offaly title, and they've only been in 2 finals since then. So, like I just remember the 90s and noughties. It just seemed every year Birr were in the Leinster final, or they're challenging for an All Ireland, and you just think that that's going to kind of stay like that.
They used to play Kilkenny in challenge matches.
Yeah,
Brian Whelan has told me about that in the past.
I mean, some of their All Ireland final wins, you know, were brilliant. Like, they were really, really impressive, and you know, I remember a good few times they had some great rivalries, the likes of Athenry and Galway. And you just kind of think, I suppose, when you're young, looking at these clubs, these are the traditional heavyweights, but it doesn't work out like that in the club game. There's kind of peaks and troughs, so it's a big thing for them to be back in the final. And like St. Rina's won it a couple of years ago when Franny Ford, who's going for a Galway job now, was in charge of them, and I think that was their first in over 20 years as well. So while it is a big traditional final pairing, I think for both clubs they've had enough tough days over the last decade. I saw there was a bit of a debate last night that where will the final be played.
The talk is Birr.
well, whether it will be allowed. Like, this has obviously been a fairly.
Could you have a home game? Like, both clubs traditionally might want it in Birr.
I think Ken Hogan, who's in charge of St. Ryan, has told local radio on Offaly that he would be they'd be happy for it to be there.
I'm surprised they could hear him in between Brian Wheelahan doing co-commentary and smashing the table as he was cheering on his brother's team.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty, isn't it, when you get local radio co-commentator who's such a vested interest. Like,
they should have Dignan versus Brian Wheelahan doing commentary for the final.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant, you know. But like, geez, he was really getting into it. Like, and it kind of goes back to what I'm saying, that you think that all the success Birr have had, that it might just dull it a little bit. But I guess when you go 11 years for them without winning, that they get back to a final is a massive thing. And especially, I suppose, because Kilcormac have maybe kind of stepped into that kind of breach a bit over the last 5 or 6 years.
And they are real dogs of war too, Kilcormac. They've won a lot of games in horrible conditions. So the Rhinos game, speaking of horrible conditions, that was meant to be horrendous, like 3 hours of torrential rain down onto the field beforehand, huge crowd in Birr. But Belmont missed the penalty and they had another goal chance 1-on-1 that Conor Clancy, who was apparently man of the match, he saved. And Rhinos only led late on. Stephen Quirk came on and scored 2 points. And then Diarmuid Horn, who's son of the 1981 captain.
Podge, yeah.
Yeah, Podge. He's only back in Ireland 6 or 8 weeks, came on, had an impact, and apparently now he could start the final against Birr. But for Birr, Owen Cahill, who I suppose most people would know as the Offaly goalkeeper and a brilliant goalkeeper, he was playing wing forward for Birr, scored 6 points from play, 9 frees.
Yeah.
And it starts the debate over, can you afford to have this guy in goals, especially when we've just mentioned Conor Clancy doing so well in goals, and I think they have another option in maybe Conor Slevin of Kilcormac Callaghy. You can't not have him in the forwards.
Well, I saw there was a
Offaly, that is.
Will O'Callaghan tweeted out kind of like a montage of Brian Whelan's commentary during the game. It was like maybe about 90 seconds long, but there's one he's like, you know, roaring with approval after an Owen Cahill point, and he kind of says, you know, he's been doing it with free taking all year, and we knew he could do it from play, and today he's really stepped up. So obviously in Birr, that they've always seen that he has this ability to kind of score from outfield, but I suppose it is one thing, you know, being the ace free taker and being outfield that way, but to kind of add that string to your bow, you know, chipping in with 6 points in play is fair going in a county semi-final.
Yeah, Michael Fennelly now, he'll be definitely paying attention to that, because even in his own county, Owen Murphy, who's a brilliant outfield player in college level and for Glenmore, sure he's in the goals for Kilkenny. So.
And in his own club, Michael Fennelly's Richie Reid is that kind of an issue as well, and I think Owen Murphy's brother Alan has kind of flitted between sub-keeper and forwards, you know, so it is a bit of a tricky one.
Kilkenny Championship, obviously terrible weekend, especially for Ballyhale, who lost their clubman Eugene over the weekend, Eugene Aylward. Terrible to see someone perish in that sort of manner. So we definitely do extend all our best wishes to those in Ballyhale, his family, and anyone who knows him. So that game was postponed, their game against Clara, I think it was.
And just been such a tough couple of years for them, because there was another panel member passed away that a lot of the Ballyhale players, when they won the All-Ireland, I suppose in March and on the run to it, winning Leinster, he seemed to be constantly referenced, and he was obviously a big kind of I suppose his memory was a big driving inspiration for them, you know, so that's a really tough time for that club. Yeah,
so Loughlin's played against Mulnavat, 12 points apiece. These games were on RT on Saturday night, and
not a good advertisement.
No, but you
tough on the players. Like,
you can't blame the players. In those conditions, like we're seeing inter-county when it's in the height of summer, played on brilliant pitches, and the ball is hopping off the sod, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, club isn't as good anyway. But then when it's basically played in a mud bat, like is there a sport out there that is less suited to soft pitches than hurling?
Yeah, it's true. Like you particularly noticed that maybe in the second game, that was when I caught the more of, because
Aaron's won in Dixborough.
Yeah, I suppose like Dixborough having won it in 2017, and I think they'd won the league this year. You're kind of expecting a lot from them, but when you see they only had, I think, 2 points on the board after about 35 minutes, I think that gave an indication. And I mean, it wasn't like they were missing players. They still had, you know, Bill Sheehan, Killian Buckley, Ollie Walsh has played for Kilkenny over the last couple of years, you know, so they definitely did have the quality, but it was, and it's not like this is par for the course in the Kilkenny Championship either, you know, there is massive scores put up in it, like, you know, but it just did look like such difficult hurling or conditions for hurling down there.
Yeah, like Aaron's own often referred to as Comer, you know, Castle Comer, like nice spine to the team having Conor Delaney at number 6 and then having Conor Fogarty in midfield. But of course the game was more, and I know that Dixborough brought it back close towards the end and it was only 1-8 to 1-6 for finish. But the way that long free from Conor Fogarty slipped through Killian Buckley's fingers and into the net, and then the full forward came in and just threw the goalie back into the net as well. It's kind of funny.
I think that put them up by 9, and
172.
You see that as well with that sort of weather, like protecting a 9-point lead in mud bats. you know, or it's just it just makes it a lot bit easier. Like, you know, it's very, very difficult to keep chipping away at a lead in those kind of conditions and try and overhaul it.
Killian Buckley isn't fully himself at all yet.
He hasn't looked it all year, has he? You know, I mean, and like he was
so long with that injury.
When they won the county 2 years ago, like he was an absolute driving force behind it. Like, you know, it was a real case of throughout the campaign your county player stepping up, but didn't quite just look himself on Saturday. But I think it's 40 years since Arizona have been in a final. They got to a semi last year.
Right.
So we'll play James Stephens now in the semi. So, you know, that's a big opportunity for them.
Yeah, James Stephens beat the Rower 19 points to 15.
Weather obviously better yesterday morning.
Yeah, so Arizona against James Stephens in one semi, and then the quarterfinals had to be played again, obviously, with O'Loughlin Gales against Mullinavat and Ballyhale against Clara. So we'll wait and see how that pans out.
They're actually going to head with one of the semi-final next weekend, which is interesting, I suppose.
Really?
Yeah, so they're playing the 2 quarters. They're playing one on, I think it's one Saturday, one Sunday.
It's an unfair advantage then for
Arizona. I presume the thinking is that, like, you know, just in case we get further postponements or we have the chance to play it. But yeah, so the first semi-final is on next Sunday afternoon.
So the Cork Championship, the semi-finals, the piece de resistance as far as you're concerned.
The Little All-Ireland, I believe.
Yeah.
It used to be referred to.
Yeah.
back in the day.
Well, let's start off with the combo then. Emma Kelly beating the Bars 319 to 119. Declan Dalton with 1-9 and Paddy O'Sullivan and Shane O'Regan Oak with the goals. Glen Rovers then hammered Carrick-Toohill 26 points to 11. Horgan with 8. It's like 16 points to 4 at half time, so it was never in doubt.
It was like 9-0 after 10 minutes, you know.
Was it, yeah.
And in fairness, you know, Carrick-Toohill getting there was a big surprise this year. But I mean, the draw was favourable to them, but it was a real achievement to kind of come back into it because they lost their first round to St Finbars by 20 points.
Yeah.
Keith Ricken, who actually managed Cork to the All-Ireland 20 football this year, he's coaching them.
Right.
He lives down there and did an absolutely brilliant job in just kind of getting them going. I mean, like Carrick won the 2011 title in Cork and it was a massive surprise after about 90 years. Haven't come close to doing anything since and been kind of contenders for relegation. So I think for them getting to the semi-final was the big thing, but it was always kind of viewed that they were going to be up against it. I mean, Glen Rovers, that's their 4th final in 6 years. They've been thereabouts most seasons in the top 2 or 3.
So the Dublin Championship this weekend, Coola and St Bridget's are going to be meeting in the final. So Coola 321, St Vincent's 116 and St Bridget's 217, Crave 113. So Bridget's facing into their first final.
We'll you give us the eyewitness account of those games.
No comment. But no, a good performance from Coola, definitely.
Yeah, Bridget's I suppose is a big story, isn't it? I mean, it's 16 years since they were last in a final, and from the outset it kind of feels it's been Coola, Kilmacud, Ballybowden, the kind of 3 of those. Jude's had a couple of years.
3 to 4 semi-finalists were Northside, whereas it's been kind of the Southside clubs running the show for a long time. Yeah.
Like the 3 I mentioned titles, and Jude's lost a couple.
Keane O'Sullivan scored a great goal in the first half, turned his man out on the sideline, came in along the byline and just slashed it into the roof of the net. Really good. Like, they have a couple of really good players, like Paul Winters would stand out. Owen Dunn, who would probably have been seen in some of the Dublin underage teams in recent years, he was centre forward, had a few beautiful touches. Dara Plunkett, people might know, he was at centre back. And if you want to talk about Coola, I leave that up to you.
Well, I mean, I suppose the Vincent's performance in the quarter-final kind of stood out with John Heatherton kind of pointing the way, and you know, it looked like, I suppose, both sides had really impressed in their quarter-final wins, but I mean, 321 to 116 kind of tells its own story. I mean, 9 different scorers contributing to it. Look, you know, obviously I think they're going to be overwhelming favourites going into the final, but it is probably good for Dublin hurling that another club have kind of got to a senior decider, and maybe something different coming through.
Limerick final then. This was on TV on TG Cahir on
Sunday. The big one of the weekend really, wasn't it?
Yeah. Patrickswell 117, the Piercic 15. So Patrickswell are now top of the leaderboard with 20 titles, moving ahead of a Han. What did you make of the game?
I suppose the thing about it was that, like, in comparison to the Kilkenny games that were on TV on Saturday, the weather looked perfect for it, but I thought it was the quality of shooting really was a problem. It got off to a great start, you know, a couple of scores on either side, but you know, like Aaron Gillan missed a lot of wides for Patrickswell. Patrickswell in general, actually, I think went over 20 minutes without a score.
Do you think that there's a template that's been laid now in terms of how to mark Aaron Gillan? Because Hugh Lawler kept him on his right hand side all the time, and he must have hit 4 or 5 wides in that All-Ireland semi-final.
Yeah,
Mike Casey did it once or twice also.
I think that's a factor, but there was definitely, for a player of his ability, you know, there was some good chances to score. I mean, Piercic as well. I mean, apart from Peter Casey, who got 6 from play, they're forward line. Okay, they had no Shane Dowling, but I mean, like the forward line is Conor Boylan, Peter Casey, David Dempsey, Will Hen, Kevin Downs, Adrian Breen. That's a lot of quality players there, a lot of guys with inter-county experience, but they just never really got moving. And the key was, I think, when they kind of got level in the third quarter, they had started well. The Patrickswell managed to weather the storm, and you look at the Patrickswell team, and what you want, I suppose, is your big names to stand up. And in fairness, like Galan pointed all his frees all day. Cian Lynch was outstanding.
Ridiculous. Do you remember that catch at one stage in the first half? The ball went cross field to him.
Galan hit it back out to him. Yeah,
he was jumping up with some guy all over him, and somehow I think he spilled it, but then chopped it back up into his hand.
That chop flick he has is just amazing. His ability to do that. He won a couple of frees in the second half, having managed to get the ball in a ruck like that. And as well, I thought Diarmaid Burns had a big last quarter. A couple of other guys like Josh Constantine and Jack Gallagher, but again,
what I really like is Kevin O'Brien at centre forward. Really good ball carrier, straight up the guts anytime he gets a chance to.
He's been really, really good this year. I think he was man of the match in their semi-final win, and I suppose that probably, I mean, like, you know, he's played Limerick Under 21, he played UL Fitzgibbon to a fairly high level. He's won county senior, but I guess it's, you know, I suppose I think he's been kind of on provisional squads, but I don't think he's really kind of got a chance in league or Munster. Maybe he might be kind of a guy that might come into the frame now, but I thought it was interesting afterwards, like, again, like what we were talking earlier about Birr, you look at Patrickswell and you think, oh, most successful club, but like Kieran Carey was trying to say, for these players, a lot of them it was their first title, for some of them it was their second since 2016, but another club that kind of, I think they really, really dominated Limerick hurling, kind of 80s, 90s, early 90s, had to kind of sit back and look at mainly in the Pearshie and Kilmallock really this decade dominate, apart from when they won it themselves in 16, but I think to beat them in a final, that's a massive, massive thing, you know, a scalp like that to take.
It's great too for Kieran Carey that he can have Diarmaid Burns, you marshal the backline, so I've got my, you know, very big, well-known established star there. Cian Lynch midfield running the show. That's another area to feel sorted. Galan, the other team has to think so much about stopping Aaron Galan. I know I mentioned the whole template of stopping him on his right hand side, but he's still unbelievably effective and a brilliant player. Like, it's just nice that he has that all over the field, and all those players have ingrained the Limerick style of play from the different parts of the field, so they can lead from the different areas. I think it's a great template for them, and they'll have a fair go at Munster. Yeah,
because I think they were pretty disappointed by how they did against Glen Rovers the last time. They lost by a point at home in the Gaelic grounds.
I expected them to win that.
And the thing is, like, aside from the kind of three well-known guys, I mean, like Brian Murray in goal, like, he was, you know, in goal for Limerick and go 7 All-Ireland.
that year, was he?
I think he was, yeah. I mean, he's still knocking around. Shawnee O'Brien, cornerback, he's played for Limerick senior.
And was good, actually, yeah. Mark
Harmley, wing-back, has played underage, so I don't think it's just a case of that it's the three senior lads leading the way and everyone else is kind of following, you know?
Yeah, I thought the Pearshie were a bit rudimentary in the way that they played the game, an awful lot of just horse the ball upfield and hope for the best. So I thought there should have been a bit more varied approach. Try and get, obviously Peter Casey got on the ball a lot, but you need to get Adrian Breen on the ball.
And the thing about was in the semi-final when they went down to 14 men, they actually did that very, very well, because I suppose they had to with one less men. Like Will Hen was brilliant for them, and, you know, Breen did well, and Casey wasn't playing the semi-final. And you thought when they came through the semi-final after winning with 14 men and without Dowling and Casey, you know, that they would have been the favourites going into it. But yeah, pretty disappointing 12 months for them now, I suppose, having lost the Munster. I suppose at a certain stage, some of these clubs, the standards they have are just way higher than the majority of clubs around the country. And for them, having lost the Munster last November and just coming up short in the bid for 3 in a row. But it's still been a hugely successful decade, not that they'll probably be reflecting on that this morning.
Yeah, so like there's obviously hurling mad people in every county, and maybe the likes of Wicklow hurling doesn't get that much of a mention, but they had the final this weekend. Bray beat Glenealy by 10 points, 119 to 1-9. The two managers were both from Glyn Barntown in Wexford, which is mad. Paul Carley managed Bray Emmets to the win over Gary Laffin's Glenealy.
From the Wexford 86 team, yeah. And
then in the Meath final, Kiltale against Kildalkey. That'll have to go to a replay. Replays everywhere, of course. That was 113 each. And then in Kildare in the final, Cuil Dove 12 points, Naas 15. So that's first title since 2002 for Naas. And I think they have a clean sweep in terms of junior, intermediate, underage. Like they were a better team here, but it looks like they're going to take over in Kildare by the sounds of it.
Well, they've been really dominating underage the last couple of years. You know, a lot of big hurling people kind of get involved in the club. And I think like they've gone into underage leagues in Kilkenny. I think they may have gone into Dublin one of the years as well. Not 100% sure about that, but definitely they've been kind of dominating, and it's been a big thing that they have managed to kind of get over the line. I think they lost the semi last year, semi-final, and they lost the final the year before. A friend of mine, Shane Walsh, who you would know from Kula, who came back from Dubai to be part of the panel for the final.
Man who briefly joined Kula, who's now with Nace and now living in Dubai, and he was togged out yesterday all the same.
And he finally gets his county final.
Yeah, on the Pig Walsh, whose nickname is Pig Walsh because his father is a policeman and got nicknamed. He just said his father was known as the Pig Walsh, and straight away he became known as Pig.
Like all the best nicknames, they just get transferred down.
Yeah. So in that game, Brian Byrne, he took over the freeze apparently for Nace during the game. Went to town on them. Cathal Dowling, James Burke and Shane Ryan all played very well, and Rian Bourne as well at centre back. He was man of the match.
I think they're now in the Leinster Intermediate. It'd be interesting to see what they could do. I know Celbridge, I think, have gone close a couple of times. But like some of those counties that, you know, when they win the senior, there's a good few of them in Leinster. I think, you know, like Meath and Kildare, they can be quite competitive in Leinster. So interested to see how they get on.
Got some good information from journalist Kevin Egan on the Roscommon hurling final, which was on this weekend. So Four Roads beat that league 119 to 1-8. So it was the first title for Four Roads since 2015, and they'd lost the last 3 finals after winning 8 before that. But Johnny Coyne came off the bench at half time. He's a county panellist, and he hadn't played all year because of a serious knee injury. He came on like heavily strapped up, scored at his first touch after 15 seconds, finished with 2 points, and apparently his next door neighbour is Patrick Kelly, the former Roscommon football panellist, who scored 5 points. So there you go, that was the Roscommon final. The quarter final in Wexford, so St Anne's against Chamaliers had been put off twice. Once because of weather and once because of a bereavement. But Jim O'Keefe, the Wexford midfielder, he scored the winner 2-11 to 15 points.
He's had a brilliant year, isn't he?
Yeah, so St Anne's are through there. The pièce de résistance, as far as I'm concerned, then, is the Tipperary Hurling Championship. 2 games, there were both preliminary quarterfinals. There was also a couple of relegation finals. But Lockmore against Clonoulty and Toomevara against Mullinahone both went to extra time. It's just everywhere. Just to briefly mention the relegation finals, Portrue lost to Burgess. Burgess had got to the North semi-final and went to double extra time against Bursley and obviously slipped into the relegation. And Killinall against Moycarkey, so Killinall are going down. Which is, but anyway, we're just looking at the preliminary quarterfinals. Lockmore won the title a couple of years ago against, well actually it's probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And they lost
won in 13, wasn't it?
Yeah, and probably did the double that year, wasn't it? Against Clonoulty, who were the reigning county champions. So it finished 322 to Lockmore, 133 to Clonoulty. So Clonoulty go through. Timmy Hammersley with as many as 19 points. Ridiculous.
Absolutely incredible. And I think a couple of weeks ago he got 115 when the West Tip final went to a draw. Like, as the defending champions, they've had some couple of weeks, and it goes back to what we were saying about teams kind of playing week on week. You know, they've had to, because the way the tip system works, the divisions feeding into the county. This was their last chance to get back into the county, and the West went to a replay last week, and now they're out again next weekend. So there's not much cause for a break there. And I know from chatting to Timmy before or after last year's final that they've a lot of guys from Dublin coming down. Like, so it's going to be tough going for them to get going again. But brilliant win and incredible scoring for him to put up.
Lockmore had 3 goals on the board early on, but they got Liam McGrath sent off after 20 minutes. All the while, Clonoulty were just taking on their points, and I think Lockmore still went up by 5 or 6 with not so long to go before eventually they were pegged back by Clonoulty, and then Clonoulty got a goal in extra time and I think kicked on from there.
Yeah.
Whereas Toomevara, it's all about Owen Kelly and that. Did you see that point he got over the weekend?
Stephen Gleeson tweeted out, I think, but he'd been brilliant the last couple of weeks, hadn't he? His free taking in the South final. But Carrick. I guess the legs might be slowing down a bit, but you know, he was just always such an intelligent player.
But to try have the smarts to flick that over your head in brutal conditions. Some man, it's 17 years since Toomevara actually beat Mullinahone. It mustn't be forgotten, we're talking about Owen Kelly. Yeah. But Mullinahone 219, Toomevara 124. 17 years ago, Mullinahone were still looking for their first Tipperary title, and they beat Toomevara in a semi-final with Paul Kelly 65 at the end. This was back in the days that Toom were running the show, looking for a 5 in a row at the time. But Toom back in, so you just never know who's going to win it.
Yeah, I was down at the Tip semi-finals last year, and I think it was a big thing for them, I think, wasn't it, to be back in the semi-final. But Clonoulty looked like Sir John O'Keefe and Timmy Hammersley, they just looked a little bit more experienced. But they've had a couple of guys, I think Mark McCarthy and Jason Ryan were kind of on the fringes of the Tip senior panel, so you know, starting to make a bit of a comeback again.
Yeah, so the quarterfinals then Tipperary are Nina Aerogue against Aerogue Anacarty, so the battle of the Aerogues. Bursley against Drummond Inch, the 2 parishes only a hen's kick from each other.
You'll have an interest in that one.
Yeah, that'll be tasty down home. Toomevara against Killadangan. Killadangan won the North, really good team. great spread of quality players all over the field. A lot of them have underage tip success, or not success necessarily, but experience.
They seem a good bit stronger again now, do they? From like they got to the 2016 final, maybe with a surprise packet. But
I think they've definitely kicked on from there. Yeah, definitely like that team a lot. And Killerwan against Clonalty. So I think Killerwan are one of these teams that they've had so many quality players that have been coming through, and they've been very close to being the complete package the last few years. Now they did lose the North final to Killadangan, so I mean obviously you have to have Killadangan ahead in the pecking order at the moment. But I think they have a really good team. Niall O'Mara, who everyone knows from Tipperary, Keane Darcy, an underage player who was involved at 21.
Craig Morgan, really good for the 20s.
Captain. Buggy O'Mara, people might remember being on the under 21 team back in 2010. He's still a good player.
I remember seeing last year I think it was the quarter-final stage, them against Thurles Sarsfields. It was Buff Egan's video updates. Ronan Maher saved the day.
Goal, yeah. And of course, I didn't mention either Justin and Jerome Cahill as well. People in Tipperary will certainly know Jerome Cahill won the under 20 player of the year.
Yeah, so it was brilliant this year.
Yeah, so all those games are, like you said, they're standalone games. None of them are going to be in Semple Stadium. I think they are probably trying to mind the pitch a little bit, so they're all going to be dotted in different places. So they're in the Rag, Holy Cross, Cloughjordan, and in Temple Toohey.
See, that's a bit of a bone of contention with some people, is it? Saying that, like, what's the point in having your county ground if you're not going to open up for these games? Now, then I see other people making. I think the atmosphere was supposed to be brilliant yesterday for that Clonalty Lockmore game. There was a massive crowd. You know, personally, I'd all be for the smaller venue if it's up to scratch with the stand and facilities wise. You know, I just think it adds so much to the game. You know, I think some of these double headers, I think definitely from semi-finals on, you should have them there, but they can get a bit lost in massive big stadiums.
They can, yeah. So if the games are level after extra time, they will go to a replay, and that will be on Wednesday the 16th. So that's it for the hurling chat. If there's any stories we missed, feel free to send them in, and if you don't follow us already, just follow us there by clicking on that little button just there.